She thought it was just another ordinary evening, scrolling through her phone before bed. The soft glow of the screen lit up her small bedroom as rain tapped against the window. But then, something caught her eye. Nestled between vacation photos and family snapshots was an image she didn't remember taking. It was a blurry shot of her hallway, dark, empty, and unsettlingly still. At first, she brushed it off as a pocket click or a glitch. But the next day, more photos appeared. Pictures of her living room, her front door, her kitchen at night, all taken from the perspective of someone standing inside her house. Emily was 27, living alone in a quiet apartment complex on the edge of town. She worked long hours, kept to herself, and rarely had visitors. Her phone was practically an extension of her hand, always locked, always by her side. Yet every time she checked her gallery, there were new images waiting, images she swore she had never taken. Some were harmless, like her couch or her bookshelves, but others made her blood run cold. One picture showed her sleeping, taken just inches from her bed. Another showed her reflection in the bathroom mirror, but she wasn't looking at the camera. She was staring into the glass, expressionless, as if she were someone else entirely. The question gnawed at her. Who was taking these pictures? She changed her passcodes, deleted apps, even bought a brand new phone. But the photos kept coming. The timestamps showed they were taken in the middle of the night, while she was fast asleep. She tried to convince herself it was a prank, some kind of bizarre hack. But the angles were too personal, too close. One night, determined to catch whatever was happening, she set her phone on the nightstand and left her camera recording while she slept. The next morning, heart pounding, she opened her gallery again. The recording was gone, but in its place was a single new photo. It showed her, asleep in bed, her phone clearly visible in her hand. And in the corner of the image, just barely in the shadows, someone else was there. Emily couldn't shake the image from her mind. The faint silhouette in the corner wasn't just a trick of the light. It was there. Someone was there. The thought wrapped around her chest like a vice, making it hard to breathe. Every creak of the apartment seemed louder now, every shadow heavier, every silence too deep. She had always been cautious. Growing up, her mother used to warn her about being too trusting, about keeping doors locked and windows shut. Emily lived by those rules. She double-checked her locks every night. She never gave spare keys to neighbors. She kept her phone on her at all times, like a shield against the unknown, which is why this felt impossible. Her life, until now, had been quiet, even lonely. She worked at a small bookstore downtown, filling her days with the scent of old paper and the comfort of routine. Her friends lived in other cities, and her nights were often spent curled up with novels or watching movies. Her phone was her connection to the outside world, the one thing she trusted. So when it started turning against her, she felt like the last bit of safety she had was crumbling. Emily tried to explain it away. She convinced herself it had to be some kind of glitch. Maybe cloud syncing, maybe a hacker. But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. Because the photos weren't random. They weren't generic. They were intimate, personal, taken at moments when she was most vulnerable. One picture, for instance, showed her hand resting on her favorite mug in the kitchen, steam curling upward. Another showed her bookshelf, the camera lingering on the framed photo of her late father. Whoever was taking these photos wasn't just wandering around her apartment. They knew her. They wanted her to see. The more Emily thought about it, the more the walls of her apartment seemed to close in. She began sleeping with lights on, triple-checking every door, every window. But the photos didn't stop. They came no matter what she did. And worse, the angles were getting closer. The newest photo wasn't of her apartment at all. It was of her walking down the street on her way home from work. She wasn't alone when it was taken. She was surrounded by people, cars, everyday city life. But the camera had singled her out. It followed her. Emily's hands shook as she scrolled through her gallery. Whoever this was, they weren't just in her home anymore. They were out there, watching her every move. And now she had to wonder, how long had this been going on before she even noticed? That night, as the rain pattered against the glass, Emily sat awake in her bed, phone clutched in her hands. She wanted to call someone, anyone. But what could she say? My phone is filling with pictures I never took. She already knew what the answer would be. It's just a glitch. Except it wasn't, because as she stared at her screen, another new photo appeared. Fresh, time-stamped just seconds ago. It was of her, sitting in bed, staring at her phone. Emily's hands trembled as she set the phone down on the nightstand. The photo was undeniable. Someone had just taken it. The only problem was that she was alone. Or, at least, she thought she was. Sleep became impossible. Every rustle of the curtains, every groan of the old apartment seemed like evidence of someone moving in the shadows. For the first time in years, Emily considered calling her mother, but she didn't want to worry her. She hated being seen as fragile, even though, deep down, she often felt she was. Her friends would tell her she had a habit of bottling things up, of pretending to be stronger than she was. That flaw, her need to handle everything herself, was becoming dangerous. The next day at the bookstore, she tried to carry on as usual. Customers came and went, oblivious to the storm building inside her. But Emily couldn't focus. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she froze. She wanted to ignore it, yet her curiosity clawed at her. Slowly, she pulled it out and opened the gallery. A new picture, not of her apartment this time, not even of her walk home. It was of her standing behind the counter just moments ago. Someone was close enough to capture her without her noticing. Her throat tightened. Whoever this was, they weren't just following her. They were inside her world, slipping into her daily life. That evening, paranoia turned into action. Emily scoured her apartment, checking vents, closets, even behind the shower curtain. She downloaded security apps, wiped her phone, and even thought about going to the police. But a voice inside whispered doubts. Would they even believe her? To them, she'd sound paranoid, unstable, maybe even delusional. A subplot began to take shape. Her coworker, Mark. He was friendly, always checking in, always a little too eager to help. She'd brushed it off before, but now she replayed every interaction in her head. Was he just kind? Or was he watching her? A faint unease grew stronger each time he lingered at the counter, asking about her nights alone. But Emily also had secrets of her own. She wasn't as guarded as she liked to think. There were nights she'd posted online about feeling lonely, about wishing someone would notice her. What if she'd drawn this attention to herself without realizing it? The thought added a crushing layer of guilt to her fear. That night, she finally forced herself to sleep, exhaustion winning over terror. Hours later, she jolted awake, not because of a sound, but because her phone lit up again. A new photo had appeared. This one wasn't just of her apartment or her daily life. It was of her mother's house. The old brick porch, the wind chimes swaying in the night, the curtains Emily had seen 1,000 times. The realization stabbed through her. Whoever was doing this wasn't only watching her. They were reaching into her past, her family, her safety net. Emily's pulse hammered in her ears. The stakes had changed. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about everyone she loved. And for the first time, she realized she might not be able to face this alone. Emily couldn't look away from the photo of her mother's house. It wasn't just eerie, it was personal. Whoever was behind this knew where she came from, knew the one place she thought of as untouchable. Her hands tightened around the phone until her knuckles went white. She needed answers. The next day at work, Emily couldn't concentrate. The bell above the bookstore door rang with every customer, each chime slicing through her nerves. Mark hovered again, his concern wrapped in easy smiles. "You look tired," he said softly, too softly. "Rough night." Emily forced a smile, but suspicion churned in her stomach. Did he know? Was he the one slipping behind her life, cataloging her moments? She caught herself staring at his hands, imagining them holding her phone, snapping those haunting images. But what if she was wrong? What if accusing him only pushed her deeper into isolation? The dilemma gnawed at her. Her mistrust could destroy the only human connection she had left. That evening, Emily installed cameras around her apartment. Each click of the mount, each angle she adjusted, gave her a flicker of control. Yet the air in her home still felt thick, oppressive, as though someone else was there, watching her set up her defenses. Hours passed. The camera stayed quiet. But when she checked her phone, her stomach dropped. Another photo. It wasn't of her apartment this time. It was of her installing the cameras. Her own hands mid-motion, screwing the device into the wall. Emily froze. The cameras weren't catching anything. But something was capturing her every move. She bolted to her laptop, pulling up the footage from the night before. At first, everything seemed normal. Her tossing in bed, the clock glowing faintly. Then, a flicker. A frame skipped. For just a second, there was someone, a figure at the foot of her bed. Still, watching. Her breath caught. She replayed it again and again, but the figure was always there, a faint outline that seemed to melt back into the shadows. She had to tell someone. She called her mother, voice trembling, words tumbling out too fast. But halfway through her explanation, the call cut off. Static filled the line. Then silence. Her screen lit up again. A new photo. Her mother, sitting in her living room, smiling, as if nothing was wrong. But behind her, barely visible in the darkened hallway, was that same silhouette. Emily's heart pounded against her ribs. She wanted to run, to scream, to tear down the walls and escape. But her legs wouldn't move. The world had shrunk to the glowing rectangle in her hands, each new image tightening the trap. And then her phone buzzed with a notification she had never seen before. Not a photo, not a text, a live stream request. The live stream request pulsed on her screen like a heartbeat. Emily's thumb hovered over it, frozen with indecision. Every part of her screamed, "Don't open it." But curiosity, or maybe desperation, overpowered fear. She tapped accept. The screen went black. For a moment, only the faint hiss of static filled the air. Then the image sharpened. Her mother's living room. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The camera was positioned low, angled upward, as though placed on the floor. Her mother was there, sitting calmly on the couch, flipping through a book as though nothing was happening. But behind her, deeper in the shadows, the silhouette shifted. Slowly, deliberately. Emily wanted to shout through the screen, to warn her. But she was powerless, trapped on the other side of the glass. And then, movement. The figure stepped forward. But it wasn't a stranger. It was Mark. The easy smile, the bookstore warmth, all of it shattered. He wasn't hovering out of kindness. He wasn't checking in as a friend. He had been with her, around her, inside her life the entire time. Somehow, impossibly, he was in her mother's house now. Her chest tightened. Betrayal cut deeper than fear. All the times she doubted herself. All the moments she second-guessed her instincts. He had been orchestrating it. Watching. Waiting. Playing both sides. Emily's phone buzzed again. A text notification appeared from Mark. Just 5 words. "You shouldn't have trusted me." The room tilted. She stumbled back, heart hammering. If Mark was the one behind this, then how deep did it go? How long had he been in her life, pretending to be something he wasn't? The stream flickered. For a split second, the feed glitched, and Emily saw something impossible. Not just Mark, not just her mother's living room, but herself, sitting in her own apartment. The perspective was different. Someone else was streaming her too. 2 feeds, 2 watchers. It wasn't just Mark. The revelation hit her like ice water. Mark wasn't working alone. The shadow, the flickers in the footage, the photos from impossible angles. It wasn't one person. It was more. Emily's mind raced. Was her phone the doorway? Was she trapped in something larger? Something orchestrated? The betrayal twisted tighter. She hadn't just been singled out. She was part of something bigger, and her family was now in the middle of it. The stream froze, cutting abruptly to black. Her reflection stared back at her on the screen, wide-eyed, pale, desperate. And then the gallery opened by itself. A new photo appeared. This one wasn't of her home, or her mother's, or the bookstore. It was of a police station. Her picture taped to the wall inside, surrounded by dozens of other faces. Emily's breath quickened as she stared at the wall of faces on her phone screen. Dozens of strangers, all cataloged, all watched. Her picture was just one among many. This wasn't random. This wasn't just her. Her phone buzzed again. Another live stream request. Her thumb hovered, trembling, before she pressed accept. The feed opened. Not her apartment, not her mother's house. A dimly lit room, walls plastered with photographs, each one a life under surveillance. And at the center of the room, a single chair. Mark was there, standing beside it. His face no longer wore the gentle bookstore smile. It was sharp, hollow, almost mechanical. "You weren't supposed to see this." His voice came through, distorted. Emily's chest tightened. "Why me? Why my family?" Mark tilted his head, as if the question didn't make sense. "Because you notice, most people don't. They ignore the flickers, the shadows, the things that don't belong. But you look closer." Her stomach dropped. Every time she had second-guessed herself, every instinct she dismissed, they had been watching for that, testing her. The stream flickered again. For a moment, Emily thought it was another glitch, until she realized it wasn't the feed. It was her lights. Her apartment plunged into darkness. Panic surged. She fumbled for the door, for the window, anything, but her phone's glow was the only thing anchoring her. She forced herself to look back at the screen. The camera in the stream shifted. The chair was no longer empty. She was sitting in it. Her pulse roared in her ears. The reflection on the screen wasn't delayed, wasn't recorded. It was live. But she was standing in her apartment, phone clutched in her hands. How could she be in both places at once? Mark leaned closer to the camera, his face filling the frame. "You see now, don't you? You're not the one being watched. You're the one we've chosen to join us." The gallery on her phone opened by itself one last time. New photos began to appear, each one rapid fire. Her apartment, her street, her co-workers, her mother, and then other faces she recognized from the wall of photos. The realization cut deep. These weren't just victims. Some of them had become watchers. Emily dropped the phone onto the floor. The screen cracked, but the images kept cycling. Faster, louder. The device vibrated violently, as if alive. And then silence. The gallery was empty. Every photo was gone. Emily stared at the shattered screen, her own reflection fractured into pieces. Relief should have come, but it didn't. Because in the corner of the reflection, faint but undeniable, another face stared back. Not Mark's, not a stranger's, her own, smiling. For hours after the phone went dark, Emily sat frozen in her apartment. The storm outside had passed, leaving the city unusually quiet, but inside her chest the thunder still raged. The cracked phone lay at her feet, its screen blank, as if nothing had ever happened. No photos, no streams, no proof. The silence felt heavier than the fear itself. After everything she had seen, her mother, Mark, the wall of faces, it all seemed to vanish in an instant, as though swallowed by the dark. She wanted to believe it was over, but a truth gnawed at her. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. The next morning, she forced herself into routine. She walked to the bookstore, coffee in hand, determined to cling to normalcy. Mark's absence left the shop quieter than usual, but not in a comforting way. It was an emptiness that carried weight, like the missing piece of a puzzle that could never be found again. Customers came and went, none the wiser to the storm beneath her calm smile. On the surface, Emily was the same woman she had always been, quiet, polite, steady. But inside, she was changed. She no longer checked her phone the same way. Every swipe through her gallery came with hesitation. Every time the screen lit up in the dark, her pulse quickened. She never found new photos again, but the absence only deepened her suspicion. Had she escaped, or had she been pulled into something larger, something that chose silence over exposure? Emily began noticing people differently too. The stranger staring too long on the subway. The co-worker who lingered at the counter. Even her own reflection in shop windows felt unfamiliar. It was as if the line between being watched and becoming the watcher had thinned. She finally visited her mother, if only to reassure herself. The house looked the same as in the photo. The porch, the wind chimes, the curtains. Nothing unusual. But as they sat together over tea, Emily found herself glancing down the hallway again and again, half expecting that shadowed figure to emerge. Her mother noticed her unease. "You're somewhere else," she said softly. Emily forced a smile. just tired. But the truth was harder to say. I don't know if I'm safe or if I've simply been chosen. That night, back in her apartment, she placed her phone face down on the nightstand. For the first time, she tried to sleep without looking at it. Yet before she drifted off, she whispered words she hadn't dared say aloud until now. Maybe we're all in someone's gallery. The lesson hung heavy, unsettling yet undeniable. How much of our lives we freely place on screens, never knowing who might be watching, recording, saving. Emily's story ends where it began, in the glow of a phone screen. But the question lingers, for her and for us. When you look at your gallery, how sure are you that every picture is yours?